Welcome, welcome everyone to the International Mentoring Community Mentoring Lounge. This is about all things mentoring, and let's go mentorship and mentor and mentee. Let's put them all in there. And welcome. Dr. Stephen Hobbs here, and with me is Doug Lawrence. We'll introduce ourselves just a little bit more about who we are with the International Mentoring Community. But we thought we would just share with you where we're going on today's broadcast. And we're going to be looking at the 5 Stoic considerations of mentoring. And Stoic is from Stoicism. It's a philosophy. And Doug and I enjoy digging into different areas of living a full and exciting life, live as a mentor. And we thought we would play a little bit in the philosophy world today and bring that to your attention. And at the end, I'm going to talk about, we're probably going to take a look at cynicism and being a cynic from a philosophy point of view and linking it to mentoring. And so that puts us into where we're going today. Also, Doug has a Quora question. We tend to get one of those in on every broadcast, so he'll be sharing that with us as well. And the way that we're going to look at the Stoic ideas or considerations is turning Stoic into an acronym STOIC and relating some words to it and using that as a way to bring some insights, ideas, interpretations to you on the broadcast. But Doug, I think it'd be great if we just introduced a little bit about who is the International Mentoring Community, what do we do? So do you want to just share the International Mentoring Community, our definition of mentoring, a little bit about what you do, and then I'll just share a little bit about what I do, and then we're into all things mentoring, about the 5 Stoic considerations of mentoring today. Over to you.
Okay, so actually we've kind of played with the definition a little bit, so I have to read it because I haven't quite committed it totally to memory like I had the other one, but that's okay. So it's a two-way trusted relationship where mentor and mentee learn and grow together through personal and professional development. That's the definition. And then who I am, I'm Doug Lawrence. I'm co-founder of the International Mentoring Community, and I'm also Director of Practice and Outreach.
And maybe just a little bit about IMC, the International Mentoring Community. When did we get started? What's it all about, Alfie?
Oh my gosh, all these tough questions right at the beginning. You know, it's probably 3-4 years now, I would say. And it's the idea behind it. It goes back before that. It goes probably back to 2009 when my first vision of creating an independent body for the certification of mentors, and kind of dabbled in it a little bit. And then the mentoring community started to say, well, that's great and that's fine and dandy, but here's what we really want to be certified competent as a mentor. And it was probably 2017, 2018, thereabouts, I would say, that we got connected and we both sort of shared the same vision and started to move forward with what does certification of mentors look like? What's the processes and concepts we need to have in place in order to support that? And then at the end of the day is how do we go about putting that into practice for those mentors that want to go on that journey.
Right. So it's been a bit of a slow start, but that has been purposeful. Like we didn't come out like throwing pies and cupcakes and everything all around the place. We wanted to really establish our own basic foundation, seedbed, if you will, so that we could move forward. And so I took up the mantle of Director of Certification and Education so that what we could do is get a library up and going. We have that up and going now, and it's available. We're updating it now because we've shot a lot more videos. We're doing a lot of bringing that in. We're looking at creating some online courses, challenges, to be able to get those who are interested in mentorship, mentoring, and mentor in and involved with what we're doing. So it's been great. I think that 2022, the latter part of it, Doug, I think you would agree. Look out, folks. Here we come.
I would agree.
And I'm really looking forward to it. There's some interesting things happening in the background that I think will bring a lot more meaning into what it is that we're doing, and we look forward to sharing that with you. But we will continue these Wednesday mornings, 10 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, Mountain Standard Time, depending on where we are in our time zone life. And here on our YouTube channel and also on Facebook, the International Mentoring Community. So if you're joining us, it'd be great to have you along for the ride and enjoying all that we are able to bring to you in terms of our understanding of what is mentoring, mentorship, and what it means to serve as a mentor. So let's get into today's world. How's that, Doug?
Sure, let's do that.
All righty. So what we're going to do is take a look at the 5 Stoic considerations of mentoring. You could switch out and say the 5 Stoic considerations for mentoring as well. Sometimes just shifting out a word like of and for can sort of land the storyline a little bit differently. But really what we want to do is bring this sense of Stoicism to be a Stoic and how it might influence you as a mentor. And this is one of many philosophies that we're going to touch bases with and bring them to you and link them up, because Doug and I are of the ilk that there's not one size fits all. This is the only way to look at mentoring. We believe that there is some base criteria, competence, what we call action outcomes, which is what we have based our profile on. That's what we do our certification through. And we have a certificate of recognition, achievement, competence as a mentor, competence as a journey mentor. Those are in the international mentoring community already. Field tested, we know it works, and we're forever updating those action outcomes, because we continue to learn and develop ourselves, and also with interactions with the community. So it's really an interesting way to continue to develop in this notion of personal and professional, paraprofessional, quasi-professional ways in which to look at serving as a mentor, using the mentoring approach, and diving into the concepts and practices of mentorship. So for today's presentation, I just want to give 3 opening ideas to you. One is just be open. Because we encourage you through like an attitude of questioning, listen to the meaning that we're sharing with you. And if it doesn't quite land with you, that's okay. We understand. If it does land for you, either way, please comment, right? It's down below that subscribe button. And I would love to hear from you, because we continue to develop, and it is a community that we're interacting through. The other thing is to develop a mentoring approach rather than mentoring avoidance. Now, this is a subtle consideration for you, but often people will go into avoidance. What can I do to not have it happen? Versus, well, hey, actually, this is happening. Why don't I walk towards it? Develop that approach. So you'll see us speak about the mentoring approach, the mentoring as educating approach. And that's why is that we're looking at it very much from a help perspective rather than a hinder perspective. And the other thing is just to think about today, because we're moving into the world of philosophy here, is how does philosophy inform your life as a mentor? Because how mentors mentor is important, and philosophy is sitting there. So I think that begs the question, well, what's philosophy? A lot of people go, I don't want to talk about philosophy because it seems to get a bad rap, which is unfortunate because philosophy really is about the study of truth. Who doesn't want truth, right? I think that that's an important piece. And part of that is because we have developed maybe a fear around it, or an avoidance that I mentioned, or there's doubt that you'll understand it. There's lots of reasons that people will throw up. And it's unfortunate because it's really about the study of truth, finding the truth that is of value to you in the life you want to live. And in this case, maybe being a new mentor, an existing mentor, an aspiring mentor, looking at this notion of mentoring, mentorship, and mentor with a philosophy lens is actually going to be helpful to you. And what we've done is we're looking at it through the Stoicism component. And I also wanted to just bring to your attention is there's a Wikipedia link to Stoicism and philosophy, and a YouTube video about philosophy as well. They're in the show more notes below. Now, again, we're not endorsing these YouTube channels. We're not necessarily endorsing Wikipedia's version of it. We're asking you to use your discernment, be open, the attitude of questioning. But we have to start somewhere, and this is where we're started. And then if we can get into more conversations with you around the study of the truth, then let's open it up. And today we're going to look at Stoicism. And as I mentioned in the introduction, I think we'll take a look at cynicism and being a cynic. Doug, I think we'll do that another day because it might inform us again, give us a different perspective, point of view that will help us while we're mentoring. But I'm just going to read you something about Stoicism because I think it's best to do it from that perspective. And then what we'll do is we'll start to unpack it through STOIC, STOIC, and taking a look at it. And that's where I'm going to get Doug from his personal examples, my personal examples, and let's see where this takes us. Okay. So to start off with, I just want to read you Stoicism teaches the development of self-control and fortitude as a means of overcoming destructive emotions. Not to overcome emotion, destructive emotions. That's an important distinction here. The philosophy holds that becoming a clear and unbiased thinker allows one to understand the universal reason. Now, this comes out of the Wikipedia. Again, the link is in the show more notes. And what we're doing here is just picking up on the self-control, the fortitude, so as not to be overtaken by destructive emotions. It's to come forward with a clear and unbiased thinking approach from a universal reasons perspective. And I offer to you is that when you first start up mentoring, having this notion of Stoicism, this approach that we've just mentioned, is especially important at the beginning of the relationship. Because the mentee sometimes doesn't have really a clue what the arrangement's going to be, what the relationship's going to look like, what's the strategy that's associated with it. And therefore, as a mentor, if you've got someone who's new as a mentee, then it's a good idea to come at it just being really aware of the thinking that's happening here and not responding out of a deeper emotion, sometimes hidden away because someone gets triggered, prompt reflection kind of thing happens. And it's really important at the very beginning. Once you sort of get to a point where you know that there is, I'll use a really technical mentoring term, in flow, you're into development, then you can sort of go with talking about the emotions that are there. Not that you say you can't at the very beginning, but it's just you as a mentor just being a little bit more aware of not just jumping back in because something gets said or sparked. It's sort of looking at it with a little bit of a cooler head and not letting the destructive emotions get in the middle of what could be a really great connection, relationship, maybe even a friendship at some point in time. The other thing is that if things get a little tense in that mentoring arrangement, sometimes making sure you look at it through a Stoic lens might actually be of assistance to you. I've had to do that a couple of times. I did not know it as a Stoic lens, but I came at more from a self-control fortitude. I sort of bit my lower lip before jumping back in because something that was said, and I wanted to take a look at it through a little bit of a different lens, and that opened me up to a different kind of conversation, and it actually was of great benefit to the two of us, right? I'm human, I got emotions, and I got triggered, I got prompted. And so I learned it was very valuable, and from a mentoring point of view, a facilitative mentor, which is what I call myself. So what becomes important here is words like associated calmness, humbleness, forgiveness, perspective. These are key words that you would think through a Stoic lens. And there's some more that we're going to add to it and to do it. But I thought, Doug, what would be helpful here is just to remind everyone about what are the certification modules, because there's 7 of them, and then linking them back through in terms of our certification process. So I thought that would be helpful today. Is that okay? We didn't talk about it earlier, but does that seem viable for us?
Yeah, you could. I'll probably get you to do that because I have a couple points that I just wanted to throw out here at this right now. When we talk about Stoicism teaching the development of self-control and fortitude, I understand that part. The part that I think that we want to make sure that our listeners are cognizant of, where it says as a means of overcoming destructive emotions. Those emotions, especially when you're dealing in the mental health space, can be physical, but they can also be mental as well. And so knowing or understanding, excuse me, how you're going to deal with those, depending upon whether it's physical or mental, is really, really important. And the other part, and this is stuff that we say all the time, especially when we're working with prospective mentors, is the aspect of that clear and unbiased thinking approach. So not having a preconceived notion as I go into the mentoring session. I don't want to go into it with preconceived outcomes. I want those to evolve and take place as time goes on in the collaborative conversation that's going to take place.
For sure. I think we could also add, because we talked about this in another video, would be the soul, the spiritual, right? Physical, mental, soul, spiritual, right? A whole versicle. It's another video that we talked about this notion of being, right? And looking at it through that lens as well. So great catch. And thank you for just fine tuning that component with us. And I think it's really true. And so let's continue on. So I'm just going to give you what are the 7 modules, because I think it's important for us when we look at this Stoic way of looking at things. And again, I'm going to remind you, just be open, question it, right, and figure out how this sort of sits for you as we move forward. So the modules that we have is about the mentor in and of themselves as a person, and then what are some of the characteristics that a person as a mentor would be exhibiting? What is known about the mentoring approach that is important, formal, informal, pre, during, post, different elements of mentoring? What does it mean to support the mentee? What are some tools and techniques that are available to you? We have some that we suggest. Sometimes people bring theirs to it. We're always looking for new ones. And the notion of continuous learning and development as a mentor. And then we talk about the certification, recertification. So those are the 7 modules. So when we look at this sort of word Stoic and Stoicism, right, let's take a look at the S. And the notion of self-control is mentioned in the overview, but let's bring up self-concept, self-restraint, self-mastery. These are all elements that link back to the notion of what it means to be a mentor and the mentor characteristics. We cover off some of those in the action outcome statements, but Doug also speaks about these quite a bit because of the mental health work that he does. So why don't you take this one up, and then if I can add something, I will, but you speak about these a lot from your deep practice perspective.
And I take a bit of a different perspective on it. Is I have, when I'm dealing with it from a mental health perspective, I'm talking about more on the personal growth side of the story. So I'm looking at it from, does this individual have self-esteem, self-confidence, self-doubt, self-worth, all of what I call the selves, which are in alignment with the letter S here in the self-concept, self-restraint, and self-mastery. They're all in alignment. And the idea behind that is that in order to be able to move forward, you need to be able to have all those things kind of in order in your house, so to speak, in order to be able to be comfortable to move forward. Because I've had situations where individuals have been referred to me because the mentor struggled with trying to get a change in behavior that they were looking for. And what it ended up was, it was an individual that was struggling with their self-esteem and their self-confidence. And we had to deal with that first without any preconceived bias of what it's going to look like at the end of the day. But we had to deal with that first before we could even begin to have the conversation about becoming more confident in the workplace and all of those things were related to career development.
Yeah, it's very much about, if you're going to mentor, then bring me, myself, and I, right, as a mentor into that arrangement, into that relationship, and not be bringing the masks or anything like that. So you've really got to understand the notion of self here. I think that's what Doug and I are attempting to bring forward. I think to your point, sometimes people, because they're wearing masks and they're going, well, I don't have to talk about myself. I'm just going to make sure that I give some insights, advice, or something to the person. And it sort of comes over like, a rock that just, right? Because you're not being yourself. You're not bringing your self-concept as a mentor. And you need to really be aware of that, because mentoring will bring that to the surface really quickly for the mentee, because they'll pick up on it really quickly because of the nature of how one mentors. So let's take a look at the T, and the T we'll use to get it started is tolerance, all right? And then we can add words like endurance, fortitude, stamina. The tolerance component here, often in the beginning, is I've got to stay here. I've got to stay with what is happening. I've got to really listen to what's being said. What am I saying? What am I hearing? Do I need to clarify? I have to really be there, right? And that sometimes is difficult because you're going, well, I already have the answer, I think, for it, but yet you're wanting the mentee to ask you questions so that you can answer them in such a way that the mentee might ask another set of questions, and sort of this dance. And sometimes you got to slow it down when you're mentoring, and to have that endurance, that stamina to have that happen. Thoughts from your end, from a T, tolerance, endurance, fortitude, stamina perspective, Doug?
Well, definitely need to be mindful of having that fortitude to, when you sense that something's not quite right, that you want to be able to pursue what is that, and then to be able to, as you have mentioned, ask those series of questions to more so to help the mentee figure out on their own what the solution may very well be. And if not, then with certainly some guidance from you as the mentor to be able to do so. The one thing that I have found is certainly number one, the fortitude, but more just as important is the stamina, because some of those mentoring conversations can be very intense. And I know when I do any more than probably 3 in a day, there's no juice in the tank at nighttime. And I'm still processing. So people, people that are wanting to get into the mentoring space and wanting to become, you know, great mentors, extraordinary mentors, need to understand that there will be times where you will not have enough juice in the tank, and you need to be able to be comfortable enough to be able to step away at that time point and say, let's continue this tomorrow.
Yeah, and sometimes a mentee might express an opinion that to you is, whoa, where did that come from? And that's what I meant about the trigger, the prompt, the reflection that might get you into a bit of an emotional thing. You're going, no, hang on a minute. That might be a starting point for them. I've got to work with that and interact with that and not just jump at that. That's tolerance as well, right? And they have the endurance and stamina to go, whoa, hang on a minute. That opinion we've got to deal with, right? And sometimes there's limiting beliefs. Someone will say something and you're just going, oh, okay. But you can't just come at it and just jump on it. That's from a mental health point of view, that's not going to help. It's not going to help if you're in the workplace and you're trying to figure out how to learn a new skill. Sometimes you got to help that mentee unpack some of that. So that's another way of looking at it as well. So let's take a look at the O aspect of this. And I'm going to use the O as optimism and link confidence, anticipation, and I'm going to put happiness in there as well. I think that there's something to be said for that. And optimism is, if there's a word that's I could sort of put in as my middle name, optimism you could put there, right? I wouldn't go so far as to say my picture would be in the dictionary beside optimism. Okay, I'm not always optimistic. But I have a good feeling about optimism, and I just do what I need to do, right? But I have the confidence and the anticipation, and I look for the happiness. And I think when I'm sharing those ideas with mentors and mentees, they sometimes have to go, I need to think about that just a little bit more. How am I going to bring that into my sense of mentoring? Okay, I see. And because it really comes about because of the relationship that we develop, right, in the arrangement that we're considering. Because when I mentor, and therefore I serve as a bit of a role model. And people go, oh, I think I see how this is unfolding, right? And off we go with that. So from an O perspective, optimism, confidence, anticipation, hey, happiness. What do you got to share with us, Doug?
Well, definitely on the confidence side, not only for me as the mentor, but also I want to instill a level or a sense of confidence in my mentee that, together we're going to tackle any challenges that, that you're dealing with, and we'll work through them together. At the end of the day, though, my expectation and what I anticipate as the outcome is that you're going to take ownership of the outcome and be able to move forward with that. And as a result of that, we're both going to be able to realize happiness. And it was interesting. I was, as we've been talking about, happiness was about I believe it's the country of Bhutan is known for the state of happiness. They have, I think it's 9 different pillars that they practice happiness on, and it's like a culture for a country. I had to throw that in.
Well, no, that's great because sometimes it's one of those words where you just go, yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Mentoring or leading, managing, whatever. Yeah, happiness. Okay. It sort of comes as a later on factor. And sometimes it's lost is because really, if you're optimistic, you have confidence, you're clear about what you anticipate. And I think that this is important from a mentor-mentee arrangement relationship is the anticipation that the mentee, if you help them enough, when you help them enough to come with the questions, that anticipation of those questions can actually tickle your happiness bone.
Mm-hmm.
True? Because you talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. And so that's why there's that sort of kind of combination of words that are there underneath the out of the optimism, the O of Stoic. So let's take a look at the I. Now, this one's an interesting one in that from a Stoic perspective, okay, if you're going to do this thinking and reasoning and not get hijacked because of emotions, whether your own or the mentee getting hijacked by their emotions, is how to interrupt that. How do I interrupt that from a thinking point of view? And there's a chap by the name of, and I can't remember his first name, it's Kahneman. He wrote a book called Thinking, Slow and Fast. And the fast part is when you use your intuition and an emotional understanding, and that serves. But there's also the slow, which is this more rational thinking that's taking place. So how do you interrupt depending on what it is that's coming in? And I thought about this, Doug, and I wanted to put the following out to you. And it comes from the value of safety perspective, that lens, okay? And see what you think of this and let me know, okay? Because I'm sort of bringing this forward here. There's the notion of the prevention approach. The prevention backpack, my apologies, prevention backpack, the preparation approach, the current presence, this practice continuance, and serious playfulness. Okay, so the notion of prevention, preparation, presence, practice, and playfulness. I just wanted to bring those kind of words forward because I think they help with this interruption somehow so that you're facing it, right? I think that sometimes what happens is in mentoring, until you get used to being with each other, a mentee working with a mentor with the mentee, something might happen and you sort of turn away from it, right? And you go, oh, what just took place? And I think what we're sharing with you is face up to it, right? In a Stoic way, they have a phrase that goes back to Marcus Aurelius, who was one of the 7 or 5 good emperors of Rome. Okay, so that's way back. He and the other Stoics basically said, the obstacle is the way. The challenge is the way. So if something is coming up to you and you have to deal with it, it's interrupting, then face it, all right, and deal with it. But I did a little bit of a long-winded eye there, Doug, but from a prevention, preparation, presence, practice, playfulness perspective, thoughts in there?
Well, just about every single point that's there, because you talk about the last thing you want to see that takes place, certainly from a practice perspective, is that the conversation you're about to have or are having with your mentee is being interrupted. And so then what are you going to put into place to make sure that you're preventing that from happening? Number one of which should be the preparation for that mentoring conversation to take place. So, what have I reviewed my notes and stuff from the last time we got together so that I have a rough idea of maybe some of the questions that I need to ask at the beginning to sort of instigate the conversation from taking place, and then making sure that I'm actually in the moment, that I'm present during, at the beginning, at the middle, at the end of that conversation, and that it's all part of my mentoring practice, that's becomes just how I do things. So it's like continuous learning. The more you do it, the more you will continue to do. So that's all good. And then there's the aspect, as you mentioned, is the part about playfulness and that. And I think there's always that element of happiness, playfulness that we can interject. I had a session yesterday where there was, some good chuckles that took place, and there was maybe places where that could have actually happened and didn't take place. So it's me being, as I'm reflecting back now, saying, okay, what went well in that conversation, what didn't go well, and what will I do differently next time, and definitely having in my mind, if I need to interject some playfulness or happiness, that I know how I'm going to do that.
Yeah, so true, and that's why we bring it forward. All right, just to remind you, that's why we mentioned being open, right, and the attitude of questioning, right, is staying this notion of present in what's happening. I think, Doug, why don't we do one of our broadcasts on the theory you, which is about presence. I think that might be kind of an interesting topic to get into, and we'll do that on one of the Wednesdays coming up. So afterwards, remind me, and we'll get that up and get that going. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's take a look at the word C, the letter C, and a word that goes with that. And the word that comes out all the time around this is the word control. And Doug and I have had many conversations about this one as well, because from a mentoring point of view, folks, you do not control the mentee as a mentor. All right. That's just a no-go. The communication, you might use the communication as a way in which to coordinate responses, like, can I get a question from you? Can I get a response from you? These kind of things, but you do not control the mentee. And that's why, from an IMC point of view, what we do is we talk about control as you as a mentor, and encouraging the mentee to look at it this way, is to determine the quality of your experience, the quality of your involvement and evolvement. The control is you in terms of that experience that's unfolding for you as a mentor. And you can ask questions of the mentee. How's your experience going? Do you feel like you're involved? And are you evolving your way of looking at this topic, your own life, and bringing that to the foreground? So I think there's a challenge component there to this use of the word control, and I'm hoping that you're picking it up. Doug?
Yes, definitely the control. And I had a thought there for a moment. So basically, what I typically do is, and I've actually got some of my mentees that are, I don't want to use the word trained, but have built into our conversations the aspect of value. So when we talk about here, we talk about, the quality of our involvement, evolvement, and all of that. I typically will ask them at the end of the session, what was the value that you got from today's conversation? And if it's not something that you're happy with, we need to have the conversation. And if it is something you're happy with, we still need to have a conversation of what could we do differently, or what could we do better that would make this that much more of a enjoyable experience, with both of us more involved or evolved. So, for both of us.
Yeah, great point. Great point. So what we did was we went out and found a couple of references for you around Stoicism, Stoic. Again, they're not an IMC endorsed. They're used for discernment. Please watch them. You make your decisions about what you want to do with those. This is not, stamped IMC approved. That's not what we're doing here. We're just bringing this to the foreground because similar to, we've mentioned a couple of times now, I think we'll take a look at cynicism and being a cynic, the CYNIC, and how might that play itself out from a mentoring point of view. And we'll be taking a look at other sort of philosophical perspectives and points of view that go with it. But I just wanted to share, and I don't know, Doug, I didn't ask you this, so if something comes to mind, okay. For me, when I think about this approach being Stoic, not that when I created these 2-3 word phrases, this was something that came to me because of my work as a mentor, as a facilitator mentor. When I've been managing and leading, working overseas, working in Canada, just even for my own life. The first 3 words was patience, flexibility, and discretion. I learned that with all the guns that were pointed at me at one point in my working career. And I just went, I got to be patient here. I got to be flexible about which way this is going to move, and I've got to show great discretion. And if I don't, then something that I don't want to happen to me might happen to me, right? So that was 3 words. Another one was truth, trust, and transparency. If I'm going to walk into a conversation, then I'm going to speak truth, and I'm going to look at what are the ways in which get the trust to take place, and be transparent. Not transparent to be indiscreet, but transparent enough to be able to talk about, myself, me, myself, and I. Bring that, bring my optimism, right? Bring my tolerance, bring my ability to interrupt conversation, bring my sense of control to what's taking place here. So patience, flexibility, and discretion, truth, trust, and transparency. Doug, you got anything? It doesn't have to be groups of 3, but is there any words that you would want to bring out right now that would sort of heighten our awareness of this? Okay, slow it down sometimes, get into that rational thinking, right? So we don't get hijacked.
Well, I think the big thing from a practice perspective is that you do need to have the patience to kind of see this through to the end, so to speak. You definitely need to have that, and you need to be flexible in how you get to the end. So, you need to be working together and using your own discretion as far as, is this a time where I should be kind of zipping my lip and just listening? Or is this a time where I may want to try and ask some questions to stimulate some further dialogue and thinking? So there's that part. And then, I'm all about truth, because if you listened to the definition, a two-way trusted relationship. So truth is the foundation, the cornerstone for what it is that I believe in from a practice perspective. And the same, truth and trust. And then the last part is being transparent. So the outcome that we're hoping to achieve, I need to make sure that I'm transparent, number one, on what that is in consultation with my mentee. But I also need to be able to be transparent on how we're going to get there.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks very much. So those are some ideas around STOIC, STOIC, part of Stoicism, linked to mentorship, mentoring, and mentor. Again, look at them, have a little bit of fun with them, go back over the video, see what unfolds for you. Grab that which makes sense for you. If there's anything that you might question, hey, put it in the comments section. We'd love to interact with you and find out ways in which to improve focus and strengthen the community. We're always looking for that. And one of the ways that we always do it, always in all ways, is Doug does a Quora question. And so again, for those who might be new to this, briefly, what's Quora, Doug, and what's the question you were given? I think it was actually sort of a 3-part question, and the answers you wanted to share. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, and so Quora, for the benefit of our listeners, is a website. So you can go to www.quora.com, I believe it is. And it's a website where people post questions in a number of different categories where they're looking for guidance, answers, all of the above. And so the ones that I respond to are obviously in the mentoring, the business mentoring space. And I have been recognized as one of the top 10 viewers. So people view my responses for, gosh, a number of years now. So it's been, it's an ongoing process. So I had identified three. I actually changed it up a bit. Instead of trying to zero in on one particular point, I've actually got three different questions with three different responses. So the first one is, what is leadership mentoring, and what/how is this accomplished? So leadership mentoring enables mentees to see what great leadership looks like, as the mentor is technically leading them using soft leadership skills to effectively communicate, leadership skills to encourage them and drive them forward, and hard leadership skills to hold them accountable for real progress. Question number 2 is, are leadership and mentorship the same? The response that I gave was, leaders and mentors are similar in that both have followers and both know how to lead others in a positive and encouraging way. The differences are that mentors often become confidants while leaders usually aren't. Mentors also operate based on values, while leaders may still be operating based on dollar signs. And then finally, the third one is, what is the difference between management and leadership? Management is about persuading people to do things they do not want to do, while leadership is about inspiring people to do things that they never thought they could.
Great. Well, thanks. So again, if you have answers to those questions, put them in the comments section. Always, again, look forward to your thoughts. So I think, Doug, that's going to close out our All Things Mentoring Lounge for today. And as always, because I get to do the introductions to the Mentoring Lounge, Doug gets to take us out today. So when you're done, and I know you're done, then I'm just going to say, take care, everyone, and then I'm going to close off the stream. So it's over to you, Doug.
So a couple things in closing. I encourage those of you that are listening in to understand how important it is to overcome destructive emotions in a mentoring relationship. So be mindful of the physical and the mental aspect of that. And with that, have a great day.
Take care.